Today is a great example for me to practice these teachings and pass my tests. I've actually managed to come up here. I came over, I had all my notes printed up, everything was ready to go. I get here, I don't have them. I only have a few things. So it's a test. So here I am sharing with you about the teachings of Saint Germain. I was prompted a few months ago that this was very important, that I present a teaching based on this dictation. May you pass every test. So every day is another opportunity to pass our tests. Now, one big thing that happened as a result of this for me is a new perspective, looking at challenges, difficulties, problems. We all have them. So how do we view it? Am I the victim? Am I, oh, poor me, I have to go through this horrible thing. How awful. No, that's not what we want to do. We want to receive it as an opportunity. And Saint Germain wants us to have the tools so that when these situations come up, we're not lost, we're not under the weather, we're not the problem, we're not the effect of the problem, but we become the master, as he is a master. So praise God, I'm so grateful. I actually was there when this dictation was released in 1984 at the Freedom Conference in the summer. I never forgot it, and it's been such an important part of my life, such an important part of my path, my spiritual path. And I was chatting with a friend of mine who's also been in the teachings for a long time. And she loves that dictation. This was like her favorite dictation. She practically knew it by heart. She was telling me all these different points, word for word, that Saint Germain had given in the dictation. At the time I went, I was with a person who was totally new, who knew nothing about the Ascended Masters. And here she was, listening to this dictation. She loved it. She was very, very inspired by it, and she enjoyed it, and she came to more activities and was working with the masters for a while. So here we are. We're going to be hearing the dictation, not the entire thing, but I would like to share with you some of the points that Saint Germain has made so that we can utilize his knowledge, his wisdom, his experience to the most amount possible in our own personal lives and apply these tools. So he wants us to see ourselves as masters, in control, not as victims, and that we receive these opportunities to advance, to gain greater mastery. He wants to give us tools that we can use during all these challenging moments. And one of the most important lessons is that this is an opportunity. So we can use this to advance, gain control of our lives, become the master, and be an ascended master as we go through life. So we want to use the tools, and we don't only get tools from Saint Germain, we will share them, but we've also received many helpful tools from El Morya, from Manello, all the masters, Guru Ma, and all the masters that we work with. But it's up to each of us to put them into practice. So I'd like to share some of these points that were made by Saint Germain, and he puts this as his crash course in passing every test. he begins early in the dictation. He talks about his retreat, where the salutation that people use in his retreat, both meeting and parting, is may you pass every test. They don't say God bless you, not any of those things, just may you pass every test. So this way, the devotees who love Saint Germain, we're in his heart, we emulate him, we are determined to follow in his footsteps and to secure what the Master Saint Germain has gained. So people who understand it and appreciate it, I say it all the time, not just people who are in the teachings. I'll say it to people I know. They don't have a clue about the Ascended Masters, but they totally understand it and they appreciate it and they smile. So we know Saint Germain. Who's Saint Germain? He's the Lord of the seventh ray, the Chohan of the seventh ray. Now, according to the TSL Encyclopedia, a Chohan is a lord or a master, a chief. So each of the seven rays has a Chohan who focuses the Christ consciousness of that ray. It's the law of the ray governing its righteous use in man. So these Chohans have ensouled and demonstrated the law of the ray throughout numerous incarnations. They've taken their initiations both before and after the ascension, and the candidate is appointed to the office of Chohan by the Maha Chohan. He is the great Lord. He himself is a representative of the Holy Spirit on all of the rays. Now, Saint Germain is also known as the hierarch of the Aquarian age. The golden age of Aquarius. We are preparing right now for this golden age. So what's a hierarch? Merriam-Webster defines this as a religious leader in a position of authority. Now, Saint Germain is a great leader, and he is in the position of authority. He's been in this position in other ages and other times. And he is now preparing us so that as this age of Aquarius comes to pass, comes into manifestation, we are ready. So let's talk about the seventh ray a little bit. It's the violet ray. The qualities of this ray are many, including freedom, justice, mercy, forgiveness, ritual, alchemy, transmutation, prophecy, and also diplomacy, tact, and poise. Now, those of you who were able to see the video earlier this morning, you can see how Saint Germain embodied all of these things. He was known throughout the courts of Europe as someone with great talent, with diplomacy and tact, and he could do all kinds of things. He could take a stone, a gem that was flawed, and he would transmute it using alchemy and perfect it right before their very eyes. So let's take a look at his dictation. I need a little drink here. Give me a moment. So in his dictation, his first topic is the topic of heart perspective. So he begins the dictation by saying, quote, "Devotees of the flame of my heart, I hear you, and I am here, not there, but here at the nexus of that cross of white fire, here where time and space meet and cancel each other out. Here I am in the heart of infinity, and where the divine spark is, there is infinity." So Saint Germain wants us to arrive at that point of reality, which is the heart perspective. He says, "For centered in your heart, which is becoming my heart day by day, you can see all things as they are. for the true perspective of wisdom, anointed with love, and fired with the will to be all that God is, and blessed with the purity of the mother. He continues, behold, I make all things new by the flame of the heart, by the vision of the heart, by the wisdom of the heart, that is the endless stream of the endless source. So this is heart perspective, which we all want to be engaged in totally. Secondly, he tells us we are God-free beings. God in you is able. That was how we opened the service with a quote, a Bible quote, ye are gods. He wants us to know that and make sure we know that. Now, I had an experience some years ago. I was asked to lead decrees at a conference, and my brain went, my mind, my outer self was going, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And then I remembered Saint Germain, and I know God in me can do this. So I said, sure, great, I'll do it. And it went fine. I did very well. So he says, quote, let us expand our consciousness now. Increase the circle of the aura. Let us realize that we are not these lower bodies, but we are God-free beings using these vehicles to accomplish an end. You are real God-free beings, divine beings now. You are immortal, and all else is illusion. So he asks us now, will you accept it? So will you accept it?
Yes.
All right, that's the answer. So he also says, you are gods. This was in Psalms 82.6. I have said ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. So that's a very important point he makes. He continues, now let us roll up our sleeves and go about shedding all shadow that has been accepted as the singeing of the garment these long ages. Beloved ones, it is like burnt toast. You throw it out the window and let the birds have it. So we have to learn to let it go, send it out there, let it go, and don't hold on to all this stuff that we really don't need. That's not who we are. And he reminds us again, may you pass every test. Now, in this course, he teaches us how to maintain God control for the rhythm of God to restore balance before the human reaction out of fear or anger or getting off balance. So, have you ever been off balance? Ever been in fear? Ever gotten angry or irritated and you react? I know it's happened to me. And sometimes we get into that. So here's what Saint Germain suggests. He says, quote, your aura is your sanctuary, and it is the sanctity of your God flame, unquote. So once our auric field, our auric force field is invaded, our aura is disturbed, we're taken aback by something, maybe a sudden thrust of anger or energy is thrown at you. Something else happens. You feel upset, you feel anxious, off balance. He wants us to do certain things before answering the demands of the carnal mind. Okay, so you got to stop for a second and look at this. So what is the carnal mind? It can be defined as the human ego, the human will, the human intellect, self-awareness without the Christ, man's animal nature, or the dweller on the threshold. So, here is his advice. He advises us to know the Count to 9 decree. the degree 0.10. We practiced that. We did that just a little while earlier in this service. So given in the full fire of your heart, this decree enables you to regain the command of your auric force field that has been impinged upon, pressed upon, penetrated, or invaded. He instructs us to reestablish yourself. Speak quietly, softly, and slowly. For in this way, you will not engage into yourself the anger, the impetuosity, the upsetness of anyone around you. Be the calm presence in a vortex of calamity and activity, beloved hearts, and learn the way of power, the immense power of peace itself, unquote. He warns us that when you're upset or anxious, your heart begins to beat faster. You breathe faster, feeling even more out of control. So here's what he tells us to do. Take a deep breath. Release it. Go into the heart. Give no immediate answers, reactions, nor solutions. You quietly turn within. So he says further on, this is another part that's a very, very useful tool. There are many ways of handling this situation. So, for example, you're with someone, they're ferocious, like a mad dog. You may say, wait 1 minute, please. I shall return a momentarily. So you leave. You don't need to get into it. You don't need to react or engage in that energy, that anger. You just excuse yourself and go and come back whenever you're ready. So you see, beloved ones, he says, the tests are flying full and sure. We want you to experience a sense of mastery, of dominion, the enormous pleasure of having finished a day and dealt with that force, that driving force of irritation, and conquered and risen above every foible of the senses directed against you. I've used this many times, and it works very well. And you don't have to engage in whatever that energy is. He continues in another part here. Thus, beloved hearts, the soft answer turneth away wrath. Someone is speaking to you in a loud and high-pitched manner. Adjust the tone and answer with the God command. Answer with helpfulness. Try to solve the problem. Try to show the best side of things. Provide emergency care when needed. Keep your wits about you and don't enter the vortex of another's anxiety, else you will become confused. He continues. Remember that anything that seeks to taunt you from the seat of the Buddha in the secret chamber of the heart must be noted as the enemy, all right? Not the person necessarily, for it is often a loved one. But what is the enemy is the force attempting to use that one. Thus, it is your challenge to liberate that one as well as yourself from the human nonsense of the moment. May you pass every test. So another point is that unless you center in the heart, which is the central sun of your being, you may find yourself tumbling on the periphery of the aura, which touches the world consciousness. That point, that outer circle of the aura, should always be a very intense blue. So we need this for our protection, a blue fire of protection, which is also outside the tube of light. Now, you also visualize the violet flame in the very center of the tube of light. So here's this information that's very helpful. I would make the point that when you are bristling with blue flame, this often antagonizes others, because it is so powerful and brings out the worst in them. Thus, the better part of wisdom is to wear the kid glove. This is Saint Germain. He's so wise and he knows how to handle everything. So you wear the kid glove. That is, you put on another layer of violet flame outside the blue, be a calming effect. Consume that which may rub against the aura or come at you. And if it breaks through the violet flame, then you have the blue flame wall. Then you have the power of the tube of light. And if diplomacy does not work, there's always the strength of the shield of Archangel Michael. In the still and sweetness of the light, I am come. So he gives us another tool, another way that we can work with these situations. He says, often it is a matter of stance. How do you hold yourself? Are you in readiness for the next delivery of God or thrust of the sinister force? Or are you, as they say these days, laid back? If you slouch, if you are laid back, wide open, lounging around, and then he gives us a whole scenario that we might be finding ourselves in this with everything going crazy. So what does he say? Keep your cool. It's another phrase that we know very well. It's a setup, but you have allowed it. So he gives us specific points, what to do, how to handle it, so that you can move on. So with God determination, with each member of your family or household or friends shall have the opportunity by your loving presence to express something very important from the heart. And he talks about the education of the soul, and he talks about avoiding. Now, this is very interesting. Avoiding then that which is controversial when you already know that you disagree on a point. I have come across this many times. My family, my cousins, my nieces, my nephews, my aunts and uncles, who not an embodiment now, but the whole crew of them, they all are totally opposite my beliefs and my feelings and my understandings in politics, okay? So rather than go into an argument, we just agree to disagree. I got into a very heavy conversation with a cousin of mine, and she was definitely set in her opinion, okay? And I'm not moving from mine either. So we just said, okay, we just have to agree to disagree, and we go on. And we have a very good relationship. I went to visit another cousin who lives nearby, and this cousin, she really wanted to see me. She wanted to spend time with me. She invited me over, come, let's hang out in the hot tub, you know. So, and this was after the discussion we had had where we agreed to disagree. So it works very well. So why continue the argument? You can go another avenue. So this is another point of Saint Germain in his dictation. So we have to see ourselves, our own misconceptions, and, you know, we can have an opinion, other people have opinions, but we don't need to argue about it. Now, we have one more thing I wanted to bring up, and this is a very interesting quote. My friend remembered this. The teaching here is learn to pray for people, not to pray upon them. So we can understand that people are injured, they're maimed, they're scarred, you know, they've gone through a lot of pain and sorrow. So we don't need to be the most important person in the room. We don't need to win the arguments or make brilliant points. We just need to be there and help people and support them. rather than being a self-proclaiming ourselves as a healer, and I'm going to do this wonderful thing for you. Simply do it in the quietness of your heart, he says. And it becomes very important to be healing the soul rather than be aggressive toward any part of life. Now, there is a lot more to this dictation. It's full of information, of suggestions, and all kinds of things that you can utilize. But in the interest of time, we don't have forever to spend on it today. But what I want to do is encourage you to go to the dictation. It's available. It's a Pearl of Wisdom. And it's volume 27, number 49, I believe, which is also in your matrix. And study it, read it over again, and see how it applies to you. See how you can use it in your own life and how anyone can benefit from these teachings. It's not just people who study the Ascended Master teachings. These are very practical tools, and people can relate to them. So this is, I'll just read this one more part here. He says, my heart this day is a cosmic incinerator, if you will, and it can consume you if you let it go. But remember, this is not a one-time event. You may decide to stop smoking. This is very interesting. This is with dealing with addictions, for example. You may decide to stop smoking now. Put it into my heart, and the record will be consumed. 24 hours from now, you'll meet the world momentum again, for which you have had weakness, and you will have to say, so this is his way of dealing with that. You say, no, thus far and no farther. I shove you back, you nicotine entity, whether it's nicotine or some other entity or some other habit or addiction. Be bound by the power of my heart that is one with the heart of Saint Germain. You cannot touch me, for I am the infinite one. I live in the heart of God. There is no time and space here, and you may not dwell in infinity. And since I do not dwell where you are, I will not smoke today or tomorrow or forever. For I am in the house of light, and the only smoke that is here is the sweet incense of El Morya with me. Thus may you pass every test